Good afternoon. My name is Corinne Waldow. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Boulder Chamber. I want to thank you for joining us for this week's Office, Manufacturing, and Field Services / Real Estate session. We're going to continue to have these sessions as opportunities for you, business owners, to get updates, to ask questions, and to get the most up-to-date information you can get. We will be having changes in the next couple weeks, so make sure you stay tuned in to these webinars and ask your questions as they come up. I want to thank Boulder County Public Health for being my partner on all these webinars for the last, I think we're on week 7 or 8, as we continue to have outreach to the business community so that we're safely reopening and we're not moving backwards as we've seen in some of our neighboring and non-neighboring states just as early as yesterday. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Jesse Rounds, Boulder County Public Health.
Thanks, Corinne. I just want to welcome everyone, as Corinne did, to the webinar, and let's get started. So what we're going to go over today is updates to the public health order, epidemiological updates, and then I'll get into a little bit of information about Protect Our Neighbors and variance requests, and then we'll jump right into the sector updates. So pretty much standard conversation here. Just quickly, this has been our timeline, and you can see on the right-hand side the big changes that yesterday the governor's office announced that they would be accepting applications for Protect Our Neighbors as of July 6th. That's at least the plan now, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The reason we're doing this whole thing is that managing our return to normal is necessary until there's a vaccine, treatment, or herd immunity. We're in a situation where COVID-19 is just as contagious as it was earlier this year, and so there's an effort to try to figure out how to open up our economy in such a way that we protect employers, employees, and the public. And so it's going to take months to get there, and that's what this is. This is a slow progression, I guess the big thing I want to cover, and there's a lot of text on this slide, but I think it's really important. The public health director for Boulder County extended the face covering ordinance indefinitely. And the reason I wanted to put all this text on here is we've had some conversations in these presentations about how important it is that we all wear masks so that we are setting an example to the public and in public. We need to implement practices like, if other people aren't wearing a face mask, you should move away from them. Not to socially isolate them, but to protect yourself and them. It's important to do that. Remember, social distancing is an important part of this. Even with face coverings, maintaining that 6 feet of distance is really a necessary part of protecting the community. And then the other thing, and this is where it gets interesting for businesses, our recommendation is to focus on your sphere of influence and don't go after strangers for not wearing masks. That's a little unusual for businesses. Your customers are in many cases strangers. So, I think really what we're looking at is modeling behavior. If all the employees and much of the customer base is wearing masks, then the mask wearing culture will spread, and that'll be good for everybody. And then I think just in terms of the face coverings, we've just updated our face covering guidance to sort of push more of the communication, but also really rely on the face covering script. A lot of businesses have contacted us about concerns about confronting people who don't want to wear a mask into their business. And what we've done with this face covering script, that the link in the PDF that Corinne will send out takes you to that script, it really highlights other ways that customers can interact with the process, or with your business. Sorry. In terms of information, we haven't had a lot of change in the last couple of weeks, but we're about to have a pretty big change in direction from the state. And so these sources of information are going to be really important again. And I encourage you to check regularly covid19.colorado.gov and our own Boulder County website, where we try to link to as much state level information and other sources that we find that are reliable and useful. And then all of these other information sources are great because they provide business specific information, we feel. Especially industry associations can talk about what it's like to do your work under COVID-19 restrictions. So I think that's really important. So just updates. The 7th revised order came out a while ago. And we have removed our checklists on our website in expectation that people will go to the revised orders and to the website for the state to get information about how their sector really needs to respond to COVID-19. And I think the other bit of update here I would give is we are expecting possibly one more revision before the Protect Our Neighbors phase is released and we're allowed to apply for it. That would be the 8th revision, and it would mostly be cleaning up some details from this 7th order. So to jump around a little bit and explain why the next couple phases are a little bit in doubt, we had a big outbreak. We've discussed that the last couple weeks, but we had a large spike in positive cases back a couple weeks ago now, and we're seeing positive rates. The rate is moving lower, but we're still above a lot of the thresholds where we think we'll need to be for Protect Our Neighbors. And so this is, again, just a reminder that wearing masks, communicating about social distancing, communicating that patrons of businesses really need to hold up their end of the bargain will really help us get to the phase where we can open up more. And that next phase is called Protect Our Neighbors. It was announced by the governor about 2 weeks ago. We still have not heard many details beyond the fact that it is an application-based phase. So communities, or in our case, the county, will need to apply to enter this next phase. And what an application would basically be us saying, we would like to enter Protect Our Neighbors, and here are the surveillance facts that show that our community is safely addressing the spread of COVID-19. So we're seeing declining numbers of cases, we're seeing declining rates of hospitalization, all those little details that our public health department has been tracking closely since the beginning of this. The state would need to see us moving in a positive direction with those metrics before our application would be accepted. And at this stage, the state has announced that applications, they'll begin accepting applications on July 6th. And we hope to apply as close to July 6th as our statistics allow us to do so. So we're really closely watching that. And I would love to show you what the statistics require, or what the requirements are, but they have not been officially released yet. So we're luckily involved in the discussion about those statistics, not our team, but parts of public health. And so we are watching our numbers versus what we think the state is going to ask us to do, and hoping we'll get to those thresholds on July 6th. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lalo.
Thanks, Jesse. Lalo Shash here with Boulder County Public Health. I am one of the office and events liaisons. Happy to be here with you all today. So there have not been any significant changes in the 7th amended public health order, which is the law from Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We're just going to go over some of the best practices to continue to do. As Jesse mentioned, there are outbreaks in Boulder County. We have received a lot of questions about trying to pack more individuals into a space and how can possibly get around some of the rules. Just please be aware that if there is an outbreak, it is very important that we do our best in reporting that to CDPHE. That way we can do contact tracing and get to the bottom of it. So again, the rules remain the same as 50% max capacity for in-office employees to be permitted back. And again, that does not count conference rooms. That is only workspace. And of course, every workspace should be at least 6 feet apart. Please, another part of that is good signage. If you have one, you have to think about which way your employees are going to be walking around the office, and that way they can still maintain a safe social distance while walking around the office. So having flow of traffic entering the office and exiting, having reminders to staff, possibly if you have like a coordinator that you appoint, a deputy to send out reminders to staff and just be in charge of promoting social distancing. That's advised. Cleaning, especially high touch areas like printers, doorknobs, light switches, and again, temperature checks anytime employees are going to come in, especially if you are a larger company. You definitely want to be able to do that. Smaller companies have the option of having their employees, again, smaller companies of less than 25 employees have the option of having their employees do their own temperature checks, but it's always a good practice. And again, having checklists, mask use, if you are an outward facing if you have clients that come in, then masks and protective equipment would be mandatory. If it's just an office setting and you do not have outward facing interaction, please encourage that for your employees. Some of the main questions we get are when employees feel like they're being forced to work in an unsafe environment. So please, if you can, get your employees high quality masks, and instill that employee confidence. That's the best. Social distancing, of course, encourage outdoor online meetings as much as possible, a rotating schedule if possible, and telecommuting as much as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, the 50% max in-office occupancy, this applies to office space, and that is according to the posted occupancy limits. Additional rooms are not included, like conference rooms. And again, if you are having conferences, with your staff, we encourage online platforms as much as possible. A conference room capacity does not count towards your overall capacity. Please try to limit congregation around break rooms, around vending machines, anything like that. Try to limit that interaction amongst your staff. Homemade masks are okay. If your office does have manufacturing, retail, different sectors within your office, those different sectors would have to follow that specific guidelines set forth by CDPHE. And then with all this pollen in the air, if people are having allergies and they're not sure if it's COVID-19 or allergies, if they're having any kind of symptom or being sick, please, when in doubt, just have your employees stay home. That would be, again, we do not want symptomatic employees to be coming to work and possibly infecting others. And yeah, we could take some questions there at the end, but I will pass it off to field services. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalo. So yeah, just an update on field services and manufacturing. There were no updates to field services over the last week, but I will highlight just a couple things that we're seeing on the call log, on our complaint log. But just to review, common Q&A, no open houses are allowed at this time. In-person real estate showings are permitted with COVID-19 measures in place. Occupied properties can be shown with COVID-19 measures in place. And then if employees are working outside or indoor by themselves, no face covering is required. And we did get a couple of calls this week that I did follow up on, just, especially if you're a property management company, if you do have employees like contractors working in for properties, just make sure that they are wearing masks. There were just a couple calls that had come in about just workers not wearing masks, and when they're interacting specifically with the tenants there. So, and then just a couple highlights from the general rules: no meetings, showings, appraisals, consultations, or gatherings of 10 or more people. Gloves and face covering are required for any in-person interactions or work done in third-party homes or office spaces. Maintain 6-foot distancing from all employees and customers. Sanitize high-touch surface tools and equipment, and assign a COVID coordinator to facilitate planning, communication, develop a plan for resources, and implementing procedures to monitor for symptom and health checks. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alexandra.
Thanks, Ambra. So I am covering the manufacturing part, and the real common question I get that is very confusing is that the non-critical manufacturing has a very specific section in the orders. It's Appendix H if you wanted to go right to the order. Critical manufacturing is in the main part of all the orders. There's nothing specific, no specific appendix for critical manufacturing. The only other thing that applies to critical manufacturing is a face mask order. So how that works is that critical and non-critical manufacturing has to follow the general rules plus the face mask order, and then non-critical manufacturing has the general rules plus Appendix H, which I have a few on the next slide showing that. Thank you. So there's a few things that are very specific to non-critical manufacturing. 50% capacity per room of up to 50 people, whichever's fewer. And that is relatively new. I think that went into effect about 2 weeks ago now. So that was an increase in the amount of people, but of course, maintaining that 6-foot distancing. So it's 50% capacity in the room. Requiring hand hygiene, being able to wash hands upon arrival and departure. Prohibiting large gatherings such as meetings, lunches, break time. So you're either staggering those, meeting online, whatever it is that you're not congregating. Many of the other things were similar to what my other colleagues just went over, thinking about the flow in the office. So you're not passing each other, so there's a one-way flow. Another thing about the deputizing someone who who can keep on top of all the rules and get the posters up and help communicate all the information. A lot of times in manufacturing, there's the manufacturing side and the office side, and it might be good to have somebody who's the information person that's also on the manufacturing side, so they can be on the floor communicating that information as needed. So that covers the manufacturing. So I'll hand that back.
I'll unmute myself. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate those updates. Just same message we've been giving every week for the last couple weeks. We are continuing to do these industry office hour sessions on Tuesdays. We definitely expect to continue them through the Protect Our Neighbors phase as well. And I want to mention the 6 p.m. on Wednesday Latino Chamber Spanish language session. With that, I guess the other bit of information that I do want to mention, and I think we mentioned it last week, is that as of next Monday, the call center hours will be 9 to 2 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you do want to get in touch with us, that covidbiz@bouldercounty.org is a great email. It goes to our shared inbox, and then our team can parcel out who is available to answer that question. So with that, happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Jesse. So just a question. I'm sure a lot of people on the call are reading the news, and the news is showing that a lot of states are not doing so hot. They're going backwards. They're closing down businesses. Maybe you could give a general sense of maybe where Colorado is, some of the things you're monitoring, and within the county or the state, and additional actions we need to take in order to not follow suit with the other states that, even as of yesterday, pulled back some of the opening.
I mean, I think I don't have anything pulled up quickly to talk about, but I think the general message is we are all watching those other states and where they're headed, and also their numbers. We are not seeing the same increase that other states are. However, as you pointed out, it's happening in a lot of surrounding states, and there is no restriction about travel. So that totally could happen here. We have been a bit more cautious and slow in our opening, and that's really why this Protect Our Neighbors phase requires an application to the state. I think really for two reasons. One, it's a great way to track and make sure that communities are headed in the right direction. The second thing is it creates something of an impetus for everyone in a community to work together to move towards a more open economy and a more open social network. I mean, we need to make a lot of changes and recognize that things like wearing masks and social distancing and minimizing large group gatherings, all things that are difficult, all those things, and the large group gatherings, increasingly they're allowed. Just because they're allowed doesn't mean you should be going to them. We need to start, thinking about how do we as a community head in the right direction. And that, I think really the message from all of these states having difficulty opening up is that we can all agree as a state to be more open, but we have to do it individually, intelligently. You have to think about your own personal actions and how they impact the larger community. Just because you're allowed to do something doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing to do. And there I'll get off my soapbox. But yes, we are generally in a good place compared to other states. But as you see with those other states, it can change very quickly.
Well, and just to note, I know that we have a lot of businesses that have said, I want to reopen. I want to reopen at full capacity. And if you look at some of those other states, after the stay at home, they just reopened. I talked to a roommate in North Carolina, one of my college roommates from North Carolina yesterday, and they didn't even know what a mask order was until yesterday. So they haven't really had some of the restrictions that Colorado's had, which hopefully means that we're on, that if we continue to follow these stricter, more conservative requirements, that we can continue on the right path to protect our neighbors. So again, things are happening around us. We don't, just in 2 states yesterday, the opening of bars was rescinded. Gyms, we don't want to go that way. So it's all about communication and following the strictest order you can. So Lalo, I think I prepared you for this question, but let's say that an office of employees comes to the decision, you know, as the employees that they don't want to wear masks. They know each other. They're not going to wear masks. What's the response that the business owner or the office needs to have in that type of situation?
Right. So again, we can't give legal advice, and I know that it is tempting to have more employees there, having your businesses open at full capacity. I understand the need to make some money during this kind of difficult economy. However, what was mentioned in other previous webinars is that if there is an outbreak, then that really then what gets released to the media, it's not the name of the employee who wasn't following the rule, but really it's the name of the business that comes out, and that and that becomes public knowledge. Also, just yesterday, yes, the mask order was extended indefinitely for Boulder County. So anytime you are leaving your home, your place of residence, masks in Boulder County are required, and that's not just to be, but there is a reason there as well. It's because it's really been proven that is helping to cut down on transmission of the virus and physical distancing. So. Of course, if you are doing that, if you are client facing, masks are required. If you if you decide that you all know each other, you're not going to wear your mask and you're going to kind of not abide by the public health order, which is mandatory in the law. If someone does come up sick, you could be, risking legal repercussions. I would just urge against that and follow the public health order.
Well, and Jesse, maybe you can answer this, but a lot of the cases recently in Boulder County have been asymptomatic, correct? So you may not know you have it.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact figures are in terms of symptomatic versus asymptomatic, but I really, I want to echo exactly what Lalo said. The public health order and the mask order are required, and it's really not up to individuals to decide, oh, we're fine, everybody's safe here, we can, there is there's a need, especially for a business where you don't know where whether your coworkers are hanging out with other people. Once they're off work, and we've brought this up in the past, once your employees are off work, they can do whatever they want. And so to some extent, wearing masks at work is protecting each of you from the perfectly, personal, private choices of your employees. Wearing a mask means that you're protected against your employees' choices. And so you've got a couple layers there. You've got you are required to do it by law. Then you've got the mask order that's inside businesses, you're required to do it. And then you've got the common sense goal of protecting each other from, the choices that a group of people are going to make. We're not going to show up at every business and make sure you're all wearing masks. But if your employees decide that they don't want to wear masks, it's on you as the employer to ensure that they're complying.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of employees have been calling the public health department, even in office, manufacturing, registering complaints that their businesses aren't following the strictest protocols they can.
Yes, I think, and again, this is this is straying from the rules and the law, and it's more about psychology. But just because you have a group of 10 people and all of them say, yeah, sure, I don't mind not wearing a mask, there could be 1 or 2 employees there who are just following the lead of the other employees, and they're not comfortable with this, and they will call and say, I'm not comfortable with this. And then we'll find out, we'll call you. And, it's not a punitive thing, but we're going to call you and say, we understand that employees aren't wearing masks, and it's not worth the hassle of having us tell you the same thing we tell you in these webinars, and then we hear about it 3 or 4 times, and we have to speak to our attorneys about what the next steps are in terms of enforcing the rules. We really want to stick with education, and I know you do too. You're asking these questions because you want to figure out how to talk to your employees, and I think the important thing is you don't tell them how to live their lives outside of work necessarily. So while they're at work, they need to respect that the rules, the law is the law, and that at work they are possibly negatively impacting their coworkers.
So an outbreak is defined as 2 or more cases, but I've had many questions from employers, and they may be office, they may be in different areas, that say, one of my employees told me they may have been exposed to some of the cases in the outbreak. What do I do? What do I have to do? What's your advice? I mean, with no confirmed cases, what's your advice for that employer who then the talk around might be, oh my gosh, this person might be exposed. Was I exposed? What's your advice?
Okay. One thing I would do is check our website. We have guidance for businesses that it's not just about I have an employee with a positive test. It's about I have an employee who thinks they might have been exposed. Ask that employee to stay home. They should quarantine for 14 days, and you should contact Boulder County and just say, hey, this happened. Do you have any advice? Or look on our website. Often we find out about positive tests, and we will, not our team, but the epidemiological team will go and talk to that employee, and then our team will contact you and make sure that you're adhering to all of the proper protocols. So be aware that there is support, and we will be in touch. But I think that the message there is if an employee is concerned, give them the space to be safe. And that means that your other employees are safe and your business is safe. If someone feels like, oh, I did go to a barbecue with someone who ended up getting coronavirus or testing positive for it, I'm worried, have them stay home. Protect your employees, your customers, and your business. Definitely.
And, I send out links every week about outbreak guidance, but really contact the health department with these types of questions. It doesn't have to be a full outbreak before you can give advice on what to do, in that situation, how to communicate with other employees, and what happens with the contact tracing section of it. And you're not out to just close down businesses in these cases.
Yeah, and I think Lalo mentioned that if news about an outbreak gets out, the business name is the name that gets out there, not the person's name. We are protecting privacy, and what we're trying to do by releasing names of businesses is improve that contact tracing. We're trying to make sure that not that your business will be affected, but that anybody who went to your business that might have had contact with that person will contact us and say, hey, I was at XYZ business. Might I have been affected? And so the reason we do things that way is that we're trying to improve our tracing and improve the community reaction, as opposed to trying to punish businesses. There's just no point in punishing a business or punishing an individual for COVID-19.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there to ask our 4 public health people that are on today's call? If not, I want to thank you all for continuing to do this. We actually have pretty high numbers this week, which I
Yeah.
didn't expect to happen with the 4th of July holiday. But just a reminder that you're gonna get more guidance on the Protect Our Neighbors, what that application looks like, what the requirements of our community will be in order for us to move to that phase. So next week's call we'll cover more of that, as well as the email that I send out today will include all the state links that are mentioned today. It'll include an update from the state epidemiologists on kind of on some projections of Colorado, so that you can read that on your own. It'll include the updated Boulder County Public Health face mask order, so you can read that for yourself and be also distribute it to your employees, and any other links that you may need or that came up in today's call. In between any session, please do not hesitate to ask questions. You see the call center and you see an email address up there. I know a lot of you also forward your questions to me, and if it's an easy resource link, I'm happy to do that. If it's something that's a little bit more difficult, I'll forward on to the folks at Boulder County Public Health to help answer those questions and get you the necessary information you have so that we can safely reopen. And again, we don't want to go backwards. We want to go forward. I hope everybody has a wonderful 4th of July holiday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Corinne.
Thank you.